Smoke Shop with Danny Webster, the owner and proprietor, 1301 North Stone and Delano. Danny is here to talk to us in memory of his dad's beautiful music that he both wrote and sang. And we hope that everyone will be enjoying it in the future. And Danny, let's give a shout out to your dad.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity here. Yes, I'm here to talk about my dad's music. This is a commemoration of him. My dad gave his life to the Lord before he passed away, and in that time, the Lord blessed him with all kinds of music to write so that he could leave it for us and give his testimony in his story on how he got to that point. You can reach him at Dan Webster at Bandcamp. It's on the internet. That's a website where you can listen to the music for free. Now, I did promise his friends and his buddies and his wife and everybody that I would get him back in the loop, and that's what I'm doing here. And I'm also, just a little heads up that there'll be also most likely 2 more albums coming out that a lot of people didn't even know that he had prepared. So that's in the works, and that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait.
Sure.
Everyone's going to love that. So this is a commemoration and a devotion to him. We miss him so much. He is so missed and loved. And yeah, here it is. It's the cover. And here's the back. I'm going to turn it around so you can kind of get a picture of who it is we're talking about. And that's my dad. I miss him. Thank you so much, you guys, for doing this for me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
and his friends and everybody, they miss him, you know. So this is going to be really nice for them to you know.
So for more information, where can they reach you? Again.
Okay, I'm at 3101 North Stone Avenue. I'm here most of the day. You can come in and talk to me anytime. My name's Danny Webster, and yeah.
What are your hours?
Oh, the best time to catch me, let's just say between 10 and 10. 10 in the morning and 10 at night.
At 1301 North Stone.
3101.
3101 North Stone. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
all right,
Danny. That was wonderful to hear about. Everyone, I have listened to this album. It is so beautiful. Anybody that can relate back to the years of Gordon Lightfoot,
Right.
there's a bit of that in there. And everyone, you should just get a hold of one and sit back and enjoy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Connecting Culture Show. My name is Eddie Rodriguez, the producer and host of the Connecting Culture Show. Today, the first show after a 1.5-year hiatus. I'm glad to be back. Check us out at 5:30. And for future reference, the reruns of this show tonight and my guests, which include Catherine Ripley, who's running for the Arizona State House of Representatives chair for District 10. And right now, I'd like to introduce Ms. Jackie Angelica, who's the floor manager for Connecting Culture Show. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm doing just great. It's so nice to be here, everyone. This is a new adventure for me, and hopefully everyone out there listening will find a new adventure for themselves.
That's beautiful. And I'll tell you what, Connecting Culture Show is sponsored in part by Mr. Daniel Webster's Music at gmail.com. That's Headhunters Shop. That's located at 3101 North Stone. All right, their email is headhuntinginfo@gmail.com. Also, Juice and Fruit Raspados. That's Juice and Fruit Raspados at 3505 6th Ave. The phone number for there is 520-295-5188. And Raspados at Tucson@gmail.com. Also, MPS Cellular Connections. That's 2103 South 6th Ave. For more information, call 269-993-8257 or 520-250-2974. And last but not least, Stylus Salon. The Stylus Salon located at 3502 6th Ave, Suite 180. That's 85713. Their phone number for more information is 520-628-4243. And I'd like to, again, thank you guys for tuning in. The Connecting Culture Show. We plan to continue to be on the air. The music also will be involved, but tonight we have as our guest Miss Catherine Ripley. Hi, Miss Catherine Ripley. How are you today?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you so much.
Well, you know, it's been very interesting to me. We just recently met, but your agenda for the House of Representatives for State District Chair involves a lot of things. First of all, you're a retired naval officer. Tell me about that. What made you go there?
Yeah, so I was in the Navy for 26 years, and it's the Arizona State House of Representatives that
Okay.
I'm running for District 10.
Okay.
And yes, I was, so my background, I guess, can start at the Navy. I went to the Naval Academy in, when they were first letting women in back in 1978.
Wow.
And I was in the 3rd class to graduate, and the first woman to get appointed out of Montana, the state of Montana, to the Naval Academy. So that was a 4-year school, as you all know, in Annapolis, Maryland. And then I spent 26 years as an officer,
Man.
retired as a commander, and had, you know, they say, join the Navy, see the world, and I certainly did that.
You should be proud of it, man, and so should we, as far as having you there. Now, let me ask you something. You were also a former U.S. diplomat. How did that go?
Well, I was part of the military, part of the Navy, so I was a naval attaché as one of my tours of duty. Two tours I spent as an attaché. The first one, it was at the embassy in The Hague, Netherlands, where I was in the Office of Defense Cooperation. So I was a liaison doing a lot of foreign liaison with the local, well, the Dutch Navy, precisely. So, and then I also served as a diplomat, as a naval attaché in Madagascar, in Africa.
In Africa, too,
In
as well.
Africa, yes.
And where did professorship come in and involved in all of this?
Well, I was a professor of military history in the Navy in Boston when I was the executive officer for the Boston University, MIT, Harvard, Tufts, Northeastern, Boston College consortium for the Navy ROTC program.
Wow.
And so I taught history and I taught leadership there at those schools. And after I retired from the military, from the Navy, I came to Arizona and I spent a few years working at Raytheon as a senior manager for international business development. And after about 5 to 6 years, I decided I wanted to kind of contribute a little bit more to the community and society, and did some nonprofit work with the IRC, International Rescue Committee, and with a great nonprofit called Herencia Guadalupana Lab School, which basically teaches preschool, ages 3 through 5. It's a nonprofit for kids in poverty, children in poverty. So at that point, I decided I kind of want to teach again, and so I teach political science and the Constitution at Pima Community College.
Hey, man, that's fantastic. And you know what? You're of Hispanic heritage.
No, I'm half Japanese.
No.
My mother's from Japan, and my father is Italian-Irish. He's half Irish, half Italian. Yes.
Okay, so let me ask you, as far as the working mom is concerned, now that really intrigued me because in a scenario where you're, you know, thriving at and striving for a working mom, and that's a difficult situation to do. Now,
you know,
how did that come about, and what helped you get that to?
Well, you know, it's crazy because my kids are grown up now, and I'm sure a lot of moms my age probably say the same thing, but the kids are grown up, you know, they're in their late 20s, and I look back and I wonder, how the heck did I do it? Because I feel like I'm busier now and I don't have time. But back then, I was raising 2 kids.
Single mom?
For a lot of it, for part of it. And it just it didn't seem like, it definitely wasn't a chore. It was exciting. It was fun.
That's
and
love.
I loved it. And it was busy, of course.
Yeah.
My kids play, you know, they were the typical soccer and ice hockey and Little League and the whole bit. And I carted them all over the world with me, Africa and Europe and Asia. They went everywhere with me. And it was wonderful. It was the greatest experience. So my kids are a product of that whole kind of worldwide, you know, Navy, see the world experience.
And I'm sure that they're 100% backing up mom with her now chosen future career.
They are. They're so great. My daughter helps with the website and with a lot of my campaigning. My son lives in Spain, in Valencia, and he contributes when he can to he does a lot of website stuff and a lot of, you know, graphic design. So they're really excited.
Hey, are any of the two interested in political career in the future by any chance?
I actually don't think so at this
No?
point. No, I don't think they are. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Well, I'm pretty sure
Who
that
knows?
with Connecting Culture show tonight and backing as far as that's concerned, I certainly believe in you. And I love your slogan, it's time to believe again. Give me a little expansion on it's time to believe again. What are we
Well-
talking about, and what are you talking about to the viewing audience?
Well, I think it is time to believe again. I think we've, we went through an era of hope, and we always have hope, and we always, prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? But I think that so I'm running as a Democrat, and as a mom, as a human being, as a Democrat, I think a lot has been going on in the world, in our country, in the state of Arizona over the last couple of years. And I think that we need to instill a little bit more belief in the system. I think it goes in. I teach political science.
Yes.
And I was going to say there's a sine wave in life. There's always going to be ups and downs
Right.
in politics, in economics, in everything. And I think we've gone through a lot of sine waves in the last year and a half. And so I wanted to run on this platform that there is hope and there's belief in the future as far as education, especially in Arizona, where it got to the point of, it got to this boiling point where the Red for Ed movement was really ginned up in a matter of weeks.
Wow.
And so that's a point to believe, because when you can believe in people power, it's powerful in itself, and it gives us a sense of hope that things can change just by virtue of a bunch of people who individually may not have power, but collectively, when 80,000 people show up at the steps of the Capitol, that shows power, that shows momentum.
Yes.
It shows that there's hope and there's belief that things can change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's just one example. There was the Black Lives Matter movement. There's the recent Me Too movement, the March for Our Lives movement, and all of those movements are still ongoing. The momentum is still building.
At this time, huh?
At this time, it's not. It's just the beginning. I mean, we have yet to see legislation, being put forth on any of those movements. Maybe a little bit with the Red for Ed, but again, it's scratching the surface. But I believe, to use that phrase, I believe that it's the beginning, and there's hope, and there's strength and power in that movement.
Yeah. Can you expand a little bit on the Red for Ed? There's a lot of people that don't know. In fact, this is the first time I hear about it myself. But I'd love to know a little bit more, and I'm sure the viewing audience will. What is Red for Ed, and what does that come from?
Well, I think it originated, just basically they chose the color. I'm not sure, forgive me, teachers, I'm not sure the origins of the color red. It rhymes with Ed. But basically, a teacher decided to wear a red shirt in solidarity to fight for not just better salaries for teachers, but better quality education and funding for our public school system. So the Red for Ed, red because they wore red in solidarity, and it was this movement that gathered so much momentum and steam in a matter of weeks. It was incredible, the power of a few teachers that just got together, and the result was, like I said, upwards of 80,000 people showing up at the steps of the Capitol, and they're fighting for, essentially, this is what it's about. 10 years ago, during the recession that we went through, 2008, the housing bubble, there was a $1.82 billion that was removed over the last 10 years from the education funding. And so that's teachers' salaries, maintenance, operations, paying for support staff, librarians,
even supplies.
Custodians, the supplies, never even mind the supplies. The teachers are, which a lot of people didn't know this, the teachers pay for crayons and paper and pencils out of their pockets.
I remember that. I'm sure we all do out there.
It's incredible. It didn't used to be that way when we were kids. That never happened. So somewhere along the line that started happening. And I hear horror stories that are truly horrific that you don't want to believe, but when a mom or a teacher tells you them, you know it's true. And they just sound horrific. Like just the other day, my neighbor said that their kids go to Palo Alto and that their kids have to show up early for certain classes, because if they don't show up early enough, they have to sit on the floor because there's not enough seats.
And there's not enough chairs.
Because their teacher-student ratio is so...
It's
so
overcrowded.
Great. It's overcrowded.
Right.
And so, and there's pictures of, horrific restroom facilities and not enough counselors.
Yeah.
You know, and it's all related to all of my other platforms.
And all of the funding that was taken away that usually
Yeah.
would cover those
Right.
areas as well.
It would cover those, and not to mention most teachers and teachers that I know personally, so this
Yes.
is not a myth, have to work 2 jobs, especially if they have families to
I know,
support.
I had a lot of friends who were teachers
They
that
work
had
2
to do
jobs,
that.
yeah.
That's
So
that's
and that
happening.
takes away from the quality
Yeah.
of the ability of these teachers to teach and prepare and to really focus on the students.
Yes, and have an excellent curriculum
Exactly.
that brings forth a lot of these kids' ability to not only learn but to expand in their imagination for the future, for
Exactly.
themselves as well. But you mentioned earlier about education. Now Arizona has had more public funding taken away from them in the recent years, like you did just prior to,
Yeah.
you mentioned in the last 10 years alone. What would you do in grabbing a seat and doing that? What would you propose to help out to get Arizona back some of that funding?
Well, as a state legislator, there are several things that need to happen, and I think one of them is to form committees, become part of a committee. I'm sure there are several committees that are looking at this.
Within the educational system?
Within the legislature, and it needs to
Okay.
be bipartisan.
Right.
And as you know, it's predominantly Republican right now in Phoenix.
Yes.
So this is a bipartisan issue because it's our children.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really
It's
want to
not about red or blue.
It's not about red or blue. It's about our children and our future.
Right.
And you can draw that line of education towards jobs and economy and crime and safety and health and every other
Absolutely.
issue. It
Absolutely.
all boils down to education. So first and foremost is to get people at the table, get both parties as well as the experts. People that are experts in taxing, and people that are experts in school systems.
Right.
Get people that are part of the education union, the AEU. You need to get everybody at the table to talk about this issue, not just randomly write crazy bills
Yeah.
and even well-intended bills
Right.
to get
that never
passed.
really get done. Huh?
And so I think there needs to be if it's a serious issue. If it wasn't this serious, 80,000 teachers wouldn't have shown up at that Capitol.
Right.
And it got international coverage. So you need to get the experts at the table, and there are so many. It's not a matter of can we do it, it's a matter of will we, and is there the will to do
Right.
this?
Right.
Because you can look at sunsetting tax exemptions and tax cuts that have been
Right,
made.
right.
You can look at reducing or eliminating some exemptions and tax cuts that no longer serve the initial purpose.
Right.
You can look at maybe calling on the Arizona State Lottery, and which was supposed to have been set
That's
up
interesting.
to use some of that money
Yes.
to pay
For education, that's correct,
That's
ma'am.
not happening.
Right.
So call them on that.
Right.
Look at other ways of, the worst case scenario that people don't like, but this is the way our
And what
country
would
is
that be?
built, is the possibility of raising taxes in certain areas. There's
Right.
there is the education initiative, ballot initiative that's being put forth right now, and there are signatures being signed to get around 250,000 signatures
Right.
in order for it to be put on the ballot as an initiative in November. That would raise taxes for those who make income taxes for those who make over 500,000 at a
500,000.
a threshold, or 250,000 another threshold. So there are several ways to cut this. There's not one magic answer. I think there needs to be a concerted, focused effort that's serious
Yes, and a good formula.
bipartisan committee
Yeah.
to really look at this. It needs to be done in a methodical way, not just let's write a bunch of bills, let's not just panic about it,
Right.
but look at the future of our kids.
And implement them, not just talk about
And
them.
implement them, because the bottom line is, if you want to draw this, again, you can draw the lines towards every other issue. So if you want to draw it, for instance, to employment and growth and the economy,
Right.
when you want to attract businesses to Tucson or Arizona, whether it be
Which we need to do a lot
Amazon
more.
or Apple
Yeah.
or whoever,
Yes,
big
absolutely.
businesses and even smaller, medium-sized businesses, they're going to look at the state of Arizona or the city of Phoenix or the city of Tucson and say, do we want to start up a business here? Let's look. What is the education like for our kids? Because we're going to bring in employees. Oh, well, Arizona ranks at the bottom of the country.
And bringing in business
you go.
and things of that nature.
Let's look at immigration policies and workers and labor unions. I don't know, we're not doing so well in that front. That's a whole nother
Wow.
topic. Let's look at renewable energies and solar energies.
So you would
know, how are we
propose
going to,
in there.
so there's a lot to be said for education and bringing in business and employment as well.
I agree
think you need
150%.
to become attractive for growth. You need to look at the culture of our state and our city, and that's education. It's our children. It's our environment. It's healthcare. It's the health and welfare of the people. The cost of living is great in Arizona, right?
And it's very affordable still. You know,
It's
there's a
still
lot of people
affordable.
that are afraid, thinking that it's going to skyrocket like
it's
everything
all-
else
exactly.
in every state.
Exactly, and it's all related. I mean, I'm jumping around, but it's all pointed at education and
Right.
growth, and we haven't even talked about the pending water crisis.
Oh
that
my
we
God!
have.
There's something that a subject that I'm familiar with very much.
So
as
there
well.
you go, the water crisis, which is, people don't like to be, alerted and alarmed by words like crisis, but there is a pending crisis.
Mm-hmm.
We live in Arizona. You look at the weather patterns and the Colorado River and Lake Mead, and all of the sources of water that comes in. There is proof that we may be facing a crisis and a shortage, and something has to be done, whether it's legislation or public-private partnerships, to
Right.
make sure that, again, to attract business, they're going to want to not just set up businesses here, but they're going to want more housing, affordable housing.
Right.
If you build housing developments, they have to look in what is the source of our water? How are we going to build new
Absolutely, in
communities?
every
That's-
aspect of it. Yeah.
That's going on too. So it's all connected.
Right.
See what I mean?
So what would you propose in these kind of situations? Because you're obviously very knowledgeable and you know what we need, but how do you get there? When you grab that seat, and I'm sure she will, ladies and gentlemen, because you have a person with fresh ideas, even though they have been going on for quite a bit. And a lot of people have said these things, and like it says, it takes a collective effort.
It does.
What do you propose to do with that, as
Well-
far as even healthcare?
Well, it's all connected. And so what I would do, I would bring, the reason why I'm running is
Yes.
because I would like to bring the width and the breadth and of my background, my skills, my experiences, the full spectrum of what I've done in the military, 26 years, what I did in business at Raytheon, and what I do as a professor, as a teacher now. Bring that to play, and really the answer is you need to, because I'm not the expert in any one of these, specifically.
Right.
But what leaders and managers do, and legislators, are that, is we know how to ask for the experts. We know how to sit down and commune and negotiate if
Exactly.
necessary, and to call in the experts. Call in the people that know about water, about healthcare, about the education systems,
Right.
about human rights issues we haven't even talked about our border issues, about safety and security. We, as legislators, I think that is our responsibility to do that. I think we need to take ownership. So what I would love to do is what
Yes.
I did in the military, is bring together not just the Democrats. That's important in and of itself.
Right.
Is the Democrats have to band together and speak with a voice and work. This is the key word. It's the buzzword is work across the aisle, walk across the aisle. And I say, don't even have an aisle. Have a King Arthur round table where we all sit down as human
Interesting.
beings and drill it down to what are our common values, and let's fix a lot of serious issues that are at crisis level. And when I say
Right.
crisis, education is in a crisis. The immigration issues we're at crisis level. We have international focus now on what's happening on our border.
Yes.
Right? And healthcare is in a crisis. Water, our environment, we are in a crisis. So all of these issues are crisis mode. But what we did as naval officers is we were the ones that had the calm and the wherewithal to know
And that's what you bring to the table.
when
that
lives are at
calm, which
stake.
was,
Lives are at stake in the military. You can't panic. You have to sit down calmly and go, okay, we need to sit here, we need to talk about it, we need to get the experts in, and we need to figure out a plan.
Right.
A long-term, sustainable, is the key word.
Sustainable, that's correct,
plan.
yes.
Not just quick fixes, not just Band-Aids.
Band-Aids
and
on
not
a
just,
big gash.
Yeah, and not just, people who just want to get reelected and are only thinking of the next 2 years.
Well, that's
you know?
refreshing. That's absolutely refreshing to know.
Yeah.
You know, in the human rights part of it, aside from the jobs and the economy itself, which you mentioned briefly, but the human rights thing, that's something that you know, I've been in Arizona now a little over 13 years, and in those 13 years, oh my God, human rights, everybody beefs them up and they get to the point and then nobody gets actually heard. Nothing's done. Now, your approach and the information that you've been talking about here in Connecting Culture Show is refreshing, but it's also forceful. I feel the force of it. I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what you believe in. Tell the viewing audience what's going on, and the elections are going to be coming around the corner, aren't they, for your
well, yeah,
for your
there's a primary on August
Yes.
28th.
Yes.
And for those who get their mail-in ballots, they'll receive those shortly after the 1st of August. So after the primary, 2 Democrats will, in each legislative district, will move to the general election, and that's where you can elect either. You know, there'll be Democrats and Republicans running against each other, and 2 will move on to win the seats. 2 representatives and 1 senator.
And you will be bucking to be one of those.
Yeah, I'm bucking for one of them. Absolutely. And as far as human rights is concerned, I think it's something that can't be ignored. But again, I believe that it's time to believe again. I mean, all of these movements have given me hope.
Yes.
That people power and having a voice. I think when you talk about human rights and civil rights, you're talking mostly about minorities.
Right.
And a lot of time these are minorities, and a lot of times minorities are the underdog. So my entire life, I think my entire human life, I can look back to when I was a little girl.
Believe me.
I've fought for the underdog.
Right.
I've championed the underdog. I've championed the unfortunate. I think I got it from my mom and dad, and it's something that I believe in, and it's something that I think, unfortunately, we still have to fight for. And
Absolutely,
it's a sad thing that, you know, the civil rights movement, you know, slavery was supposedly abolished, you know, in the 1860s, and then 100 years later, in the 1960s, we still fight. You know, Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Act and the civil rights movement was still being fought. And then again, 50 years later, we're still fighting for civil rights and Black Lives Matter movements and other movements. I mean, it's not just the Black Lives Matter movements; it's the LGBT community, which are still fighting for just equality.
Equality as a whole.
And
Yes, that's
equal
correct.
access to you know the latest Supreme Court case about a wedding cake. You know,
what was that about?
Just, it was just crazy. You know, you heard about that, right?
I didn't. But you can elaborate.
The wedding. It was a case where a baker refused to sell a wedding cake to a gay couple who wanted to get married and have a nice wedding cake, and they were denied. So that went up to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And so I don't want to get into that, but it's just crazy that that's even an issue. That
just like the slavery issue, and then looking 50 years later, even 100 years later, we thought as a race that we would move ahead. And by the way, if anybody still wonders, like most of us did, and some may still do, that you know, what our purpose is in life, and it's to connect as a human race, to become one ideal, to have ideals like Miss Ripley is talking about right now, the ones that she represents and the ones she believes in, the ones that she believes in. And this is a point in case that, you know, like I said, when I first met you, I just simply, we were at a party mode, and it was a nice time. I really had enjoyed myself. But the first thing that I asked her, just upon introducing myself, was, what would you do about this situation? And you mentioned about the water. Now, I talked about the water in Tucson, and you know, the levels of arsenic are 8 times higher than what's being actually you know, brought out to the public. Now, that also is an issue that includes, you know, health issues, birth defects, and other stuff. So when you mentioned about the water earlier, that was one of the things I asked Miss Ripley. I said, Ms. Ripley, what would you do? What would you propose about better water quality for, you know, I mean, we're all bathing in it, and we've seen the commercials. You know, you stick your finger in there, and 2 seconds later, the yellow is gone, representing arsenic. What would you say about something like that?
Well, I mean, so you bring something new up, because not only are we fighting to have water, period, we're fighting to have quality water that needs to be checked. And I think that's just something that we can, you know, I would look at legislation, but it would be something, again, I'm not an expert in water quality.
Right, understand.
But I do know that it would be something that I would definitely look into and fight for, because if it has to do with birth defects and health and the health of our children and all of us, I think it's something we would look at. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. So it's twofold. It's like just fighting to have water, period, let alone quality water. I mean, we all drink bottled water, and even bottled water now is not toxic. A good thing because of the plastic. So, and a lot of people cannot afford reverse osmosis in their homes. So now only the people that have a certain wealthier income can afford clean water that's not dangerous. That's a crazy thing. But you mentioned, and I love this, I don't know how much time we have, but
we got about 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Connecting cultures, I love that, because it's all about connectivity, and it's all about sharing cultures.
That's absolutely correct. Well, and then connecting part. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for viewing in tonight, and I want to thank our guest, Miss Catherine Ripley. Much coming. Don't forget that we have the elections coming up in August. Catherine Ripley for the seat, District 10. Thank you.